And we are back with another segment of JusParlay's NBA Plays, where I'm providing you all with my NBA plays for that particular day. So our NBA plays for November 13th, like I always say, there are 3 categories of bets that I break down. I call them my definites, my shoulds, and my coulds, and it's in order of confidence. My definites are bets that I'm supremely confident in. I definitively think will happen. My shoulds are bets that I think should happen. I'm confident in them, but I'm not so confident that I think that it definitively would happen. And I break it down. My last category is my coulds. Bets that I think are pretty risky. Usually you can tell they're risky because a lot of times they will be underdogs. And these are things that I think have a possibility of happening, but I can easily see it not going that particular way. However, if you want to, go out on a limb, take a shot in the dark, these are the type of bets that you can potentially go on and make some money on. So our bets for November 13th, I'm going to start with my definites, my most confident bets. I'm going to go with the Utah Jazz beating the Miami Heat. The Utah Jazz, these two teams have pretty similar records. The Utah Jazz are 7-4 right now. The Miami Heat is 8-5. So these two teams are both doing pretty well. However, in their last couple of games, the Miami Heat have not done well. They're actually on a 3-game losing streak. They've been losing ever since, Nikola Jokic got into it with Markieff Morris and the Miami Heat, put on that little tough persona. They haven't won a game since. I think that trend will continue tonight. The Utah Jazz, they're coming in, they're at home. They're 4-1 at home. They haven't looked the most consistent because they did lose their last game to the Indiana Pacers. Another struggling team, also pretty unreliable, missing Karis LeVert, and they still lost that game, even though the Utah Jazz was fully healthy. But I think the Utah Jazz solidifies this. They split the season series 1-1 because, as you do know, the Miami Heat did win the last match between these two teams. Whether Jimmy Butler plays or not, I don't think that's relevant. If you want to add and potentially make more money off of this bet, I'll probably add a Rudy Gobert double-double. That's pretty reliable on any given night to the Utah Jazz winning straight up. So that's my definite for tonight. My only definite, I don't have any more. So I just go down to my next set of categories of bets. My shoulds, so my definites will end at the Utah Jazz beating the Miami Heat. My shoulds, I'm going to start off with the Philadelphia 76ers beating the Indiana Pacers, the team that just beat the Utah Jazz. Indiana Pacers beat a really good team, the Utah Jazz, and Karis LeVert is questionable for this game, so he may or may not play. But I'm going with the Philadelphia 76ers beating the Utah Jazz. Why is that? Even though the Philadelphia 76ers do have Joel Embiid in quarantine because I believe he caught COVID or he's just in COVID protocols, one of the two things. They did get Tobias Harris back and had a hard-fought game against the Toronto Raptors in which Tyrese Maxey went for over 30. Despite missing their best player, their best 2 players, and because, Ben Simmons is on that team too and he's not trying to play, the Philadelphia 76ers have proven to be a pretty good team even without their 2 stars, Tyrese Maxey cooking. They got guys like Shake Milton. Tobias Harris just came back from protocol, and Andre Drummond has been a beast on the boards. I think that Andre Drummond does his thing tonight, has a huge night. Tobias Harris as well. The Indiana Pacers do not play defense. I think and surprisingly, even though they do have Miles Turner, they're not that great at guarding the interior. And I think the Philadelphia 76ers killed them in the interior and from behind the 3-point line with Seth Curry. I think this game will be very high scoring, so probably look to take the over on the points. I haven't looked at what the over on the points is, but that seems like a pretty good bet as well. I think the Sixers definitely take this one home, even though they are on the road and they are the underdogs here. So my first should is the Philadelphia 76ers beating the Indiana Pacers. My next one is the Los Angeles Clippers extending their winning streak to 7 and beating the Minnesota Timberwolves. Minnesota Timberwolves have looked, they had good performances, but I wouldn't say that they necessarily look really good. Even when Anthony Edwards dropped 48, Minnesota Timberwolves have a lot of flaws in their offensive scheme and defensive, to be quite honest. But they have a lot of talent. D'Lo Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns. However, I don't think that they'll beat the Los Angeles Clippers, despite the fact that the Los Angeles Clippers beat them 2 times already this season, early in the season. These two teams will play 4 times, but I think the first 3 games go to the Los Angeles Clippers. They are on a 6-game winning streak. Paul George is doing his thing, cooking, having a MVP campaign kind of run. I do think both teams shoot really well because the Clippers aren't that great at guarding the 3-point line, but neither the Minnesota Timberwolves. Look for Nicholas Batum to potentially have a really good game after a disappointing performance last time out. I think this one is kind of pretty, I would call this a definite, but the only thing that stops me from calling it a definite is the fact that the Minnesota Timberwolves, it's kind of hard to beat a team 3 times in a row, even if the other team sucks, because you can suffer from success. In the words of DJ Khaled, it's I played this team too many times, and you just take your foot off the gas pedal, and then they come in motivated and end up beating you. That's why I call this a should and not a definite, because these two teams already played twice, and you never know if the Los Angeles Clippers take their foot off the gas pedal, and especially on a winning streak. It's kind of hard to keep winning streaks alive a lot of times because of motivation. But outside of motivation purposes, I think the Los Angeles Clippers win this game easy. Now, my last set of bets, the coulds, going to the could category. So my definite was the Utah Jazz beating the Miami Heat. My shoulds, I think the Philadelphia 76ers should beat the Indiana Pacers. Also, the Minnesota Timberwolves the Los Angeles Clippers should beat the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now my coulds, if you want to get really risky, I think a really risky bet, but I actually think will happen, is the Toronto Raptors lose to the Detroit Pistons. I think the Detroit Pistons upset the Toronto Raptors tonight. And I said Toronto Raptors lose more so than the Pistons win because the Pistons are awful. They're currently the worst team in the Eastern Conference, sitting at a 2-9 record, and their roster kind of reflects how bad they are. They stink. They just lost one of their best players, which is crazy, and Kelly Olynyk for about 6 weeks. They just got cooked by the Cavs last night, 20-piece. They only put up 78 points in this day and age of scoring in the NBA. I don't think this team has much legs to stand on. However, they are playing the Toronto Raptors, a team that has been unreliable as of late. Although they did win their last game against Philly, they kind of almost blew it. So I think the Toronto Raptors are getting back Pascal Siakam for this game, and they haven't won a game with Pascal Siakam so far this season. And you know Pascal Siakam's name was involved in a lot of trade rumors in the offseason. I think that trend continues. Pascal Siakam and the Toronto Raptors go winless without Pascal Siakam and lose to the awful Detroit Pistons. So that's my bets that's my particular plays for November 13th. There you got it, JusParlay's NBA plays.